Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this video, Judith Reynolds was an intelligent nun from a convent in Illinois, United States. From a young age, Judith showed her intelligence. She completed her studies in philosophy and theology with excellent results and was known as someone very devout to the teachings of the church. However, behind her piety and dedication, Judith harbored hatred towards Islam, a religion she believed was in conflict with the values she held. Judith's hatred towards Islam began after the event that shook the world. She grew up with the narrative that Islam was a religion of violence. This narrative was reinforced when she read news stories in the media that often unfairly portrayed Muslims. In her eyes, Islam was a threat to world peace. As an intellectual, Judith decided to delve into Islam in order to debunk the religion in public discussions. She read the Koran, Hadith, and books on the history of Islam. Judith Reynolds, the esteemed nun at St. Mary's Church in Illinois, was known as a sharp and resilient spiritual leader. She was often invited to speak at seminars and interfaith discussions. One day, a public debate was held at the church on a sensitive topic. Does Islam or Christianity better reflect the path to God? As the prominent figure of the church, Judith was chosen to lead the debate and to be the opponent of a Muslim man named Ahmed Salim, a young scholar who was confident yet humble. Judith eagerly accepted the challenge, seeing it as a golden opportunity to prove the superiority of her faith before her congregation. The debate was attended by hundreds of churchgoers. Judith began confidently presenting the argument that Christianity was the only path to salvation. She quoted the Bible fluently and criticized several Islamic teachings that she found irrational. The congregation cheered in support of her. When it was Ahmed's turn, he responded calmly. He didn't retaliate with attacks, but instead explained Islam in a simple yet profound manner. He discussed the universal values taught by Islam, such as compassion, justice, and respect for differences. Ahmed also quoted a verse from the Koran. "There is no compulsion in religion. The right course has become clear from the wrong." Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah 256. Ahmed emphasized that Islam teaches its followers to love Jesus as one of the great prophets and that Muslims respect the Bible, even though they have a different understanding of it. This surprised the congregation, as many were unaware of this fact. When Judith attempted to attack Islam as a religion of violence, Ahmed responded wisely. He said, "Violence is not the monopoly of any one religion. All religions, if misunderstood, can be misused by their followers. But the essence of Islam is peace, just as the meaning of the word Islam itself signifies." At the end of the debate, a member of the congregation asked Ahmed, "If Islam is so beautiful, why do many Muslims act badly?" Ahmed answered with a smile, "Just as not everyone who claims to be Christian reflects the love of Christ, not every Muslim reflects the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. Religion is perfect, but humans are weak and fallible." This answer left the room in silence. Many in the congregation were stunned by Ahmed's humility and wisdom. When the debate concluded, Judith felt utterly defeated. The arguments she had thought were strong were easily refuted by Ahmed, not with attacks, but with logical explanations full of compassion. She felt embarrassed in front of her congregation. However, what was more surprising was that the congregation gave Ahmed a standing ovation. Some even approached him to learn more about Islam. Judith could only watch, her emotions mixed, disappointed, embarrassed, but also curious. After her humiliating defeat in the debate with Ahmed, Judith felt her self-esteem shattered. However, instead of accepting her loss with humility, she decided to retaliate. Judith began studying Islam with the intention of discrediting the religion. She read the Koran, Hadith, and other Islamic literature, but with a heart full of hatred. One Sunday morning, St. Mary's Church was packed with congregants eagerly awaiting Judith's sermon. This time she chose a bold and provocative theme: why Islam is not the path to God. With a loud voice, she delivered sharp criticisms of Islam. She quoted verses from the Quran out of context, labeled Islamic teachings as a threat, and even defamed Prophet Muhammad. The climax of the sermon came when Judith took a copy of the Quran she had brought and placed it on the floor. In a fit of anger, she said, "This is proof that this religion is not worth following." She then stepped on the holy book with great emotion. The congregation, which had initially supported her, began to fall silent, some looking shocked and uncomfortable. In the midst of the tense silence, a man from the congregation stood up. His name was Michael, a respected member of the church known for his wisdom. Calmly, he walked to the front and said, "Sister Judith, I respect you as our spiritual leader. However, your actions today do not reflect the teachings of Christ's love that we follow." Judith was taken aback and tried to defend her actions. But Michael continued in a calm yet firm voice, "Christ taught us to love our enemies, to honor others, and to seek the truth with an open heart. What you did today contradicts all of that." Michael then asked permission to speak to the congregation. He lifted the Koran that Judith had stepped on, gently cleaned it, and said, "This book is not only revered by Muslims, but it also contains beautiful teachings. In fact, it even contains the story of Jesus." With great respect, Michael began reading several verses from the Quran about Jesus, using a translation he had prepared earlier. "Remember when the angel said, 'O Mary, indeed Allah gives you good tidings of a word from Him. His name is the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, distinguished in this world, in the hereafter.'" Quran, Surah Ali Imran 45. He explained to the congregation that in Islam, Jesus, Isa, is one of the greatest and most respected prophets, born of a virgin and called the Messiah. Muslims love Jesus and consider him an exemplary figure. Michael concluded by saying, "Isn't it interesting that these two great world religions both honor Jesus? Perhaps instead of creating a divide of hatred, we should seek the commonalities that can bring us closer together." Judith was deeply shaken by this rebuke. The congregation, which had always been loyal to her, gave Michael a round of applause. She realized that her actions, based on hatred, had humiliated herself. After the service ended, Judith approached Michael with a trembling voice. "How do you know so much about Islam?" she asked. Michael smiled. "I was once a missionary in the Middle East. At first I was like you, trying to discredit Islam. But the more I learned, the more I realized the beauty of its teachings. Not to abandon my faith, but to enrich my understanding of God." However, what happened next was even more surprising. Michael, who had spent a great deal of time deeply understanding Islam, stood in front of the church before Judith and the entire congregation. With full conviction, he addressed the congregation, saying, "Today I want to choose the path that I believe to be true, the path that brings me closer to God. I want to recite the Shahada, and I invite you to join me with a heart full of conviction." Michael recited the Shahada, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu." I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Michael's words, full of sincerity, echoed in the church. The congregation, which had been silent and listening, began to feel a deep change in their hearts. They felt a new light enter, a new understanding that was different from what they had believed for so long. With open hearts, one by one, members of the congregation began to follow Michael's lead. Some whispered, some cried, and others seemed uncertain, but all felt compelled to witness the truth in their hearts. In the end, one by one, the members of the congregation, of all ages and backgrounds, recited the Shahada alongside Michael. Watching this, Judith felt as if the world was spinning around her. She, who had once been so sure that only Christianity was the true path, now watched her congregation repent and choose a different path. They chose to embrace Islam, not out of pressure, but because they felt peace in the teachings they had learned with open hearts. Judith, who had once so firmly opposed Islam, now felt shattered and confused. She didn't know what to think or how to respond to the profound change before her, but she couldn't help feeling touched and amazed as she saw the transformation in her congregation. They weren't just choosing Islam as their new faith, they were doing so with deep conviction and understanding. Islam, as a religion practiced by more than 2 billion people in the world, has many interesting and meaningful aspects. One aspect that is often debated and discussed in society is how each individual draws closer to God, how they choose their path in life, and how the Islamic community welcomes those who decide to embrace this religion. In this discussion, we will highlight the phenomenon of Nun Injak al-Quran, which often occurs in a religious context, and how the congregation or congregation views and responds to the process of someone choosing to convert to Islam. Nun injak al-Quran. Have we ever heard the term Nun injak al-Quran? This term is often used in discussions related to respect for the holy book of Muslims, the Quran. Literally, Nun is a letter in the Arabic alphabet, while injak means the act of stepping on or stepping on. In this context, Nun injak al-Quran refers to the act of disrespecting or degrading the Quran by stepping on it or letting it be trampled on. Basically, the Quran is a book that is highly respected by Muslims. The act of stepping on or belittling the Quran, either physically or symbolically, is considered a major sin in the eyes of Islam. For a Muslim, maintaining the honor and glory of the Quran is an obligation, both in terms of treating it well, such as placing it in a clean and high place, and keeping it from being stepped on by anyone. However, in some cases, some do this out of ignorance, or even in the form of deliberate insults. This phenomenon often triggers debate among Muslims, because although on the one hand, we must uphold manners towards the Quran, on the other hand, there is a major issue regarding how to respect religion, teachings, and honor that comes from this holy book. Congregation and the choice to convert to Islam. As a religion that prioritizes freedom of religion, Islam highly respects individual choices in embracing religion. Everyone has the right to decide their path in life, including choosing to convert to Islam. Becoming a Muslim is a personal choice based on belief and understanding of Islamic teachings, which are believed to bring peace, safety, and happiness in the world and the hereafter. However, although religious freedom is guaranteed in Islam, accepting someone to become part of the Muslim community often involves certain processes and dynamics among the congregation. This concerns how the Muslim community accepts those who have just converted to this religion and how they view the process of converting to Islam. In general, there are two attitudes that can be found in the congregation's response to someone who decides to convert to Islam: an attitude of loving and open acceptance, and a more critical or even skeptical attitude. The first attitude shows an understanding that Islam is a religion full of love and mercy, which is open to anyone who wants to embrace it wholeheartedly. In this attitude, the congregation tries to provide support and education so that the new person can understand and practice the teachings of Islam well. The second attitude, although not widely found, focuses more on testing the seriousness of someone who has just converted to Islam. Some congregations may feel worried or doubtful about the loyalty or sincerity of someone who has just converted to Islam. However, this attitude is usually more related to a person's personal understanding or views and does not always represent the attitude of the majority of Muslims. Accepting the choice to convert to Islam. In general, Muslims are taught to accept anyone who wholeheartedly wants to embrace this religion. One of the hadiths that strengthens this is the words of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam: "Whoever embraces Islam with a sincere heart and an honest tongue, then he is a Muslim." Narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. This hadith emphasizes that acceptance of people who want to embrace Islam does not need to be based on origin, race, tribe, or other background. It is important for the congregation to understand that Islam is not just a religious label, but a commitment to the teachings of God Almighty. The process of entering Islam is not about meeting certain standards determined by others, but about realizing the truth and belief in the heart. Conclusion. Nun injak al-Quran and the congregation's reaction to someone who chooses to convert to Islam reflect two different things in the dynamics of Muslim life. While the Quran as a holy book must be respected and guarded well, the choice to become a Muslim is an individual right that needs to be respected. The Muslim community should welcome those who want to embrace Islam with open arms and compassion, and guide them to better understand the teachings of this religion. As brothers and sisters, it is only right that we maintain harmony and respect each other's choices in walking the spiritual path towards God.